Either you're coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. And that's what we're seeing from the Baltimore Ravens.
That's right.
When you go into the Ravens facility at the castle, there's a sign when you walk in the door that says, "Play like a Raven."
Attitude reflect leadership, Captain.
If you're not coaching it, you're allowing it to happen. This is a phrase that I heard earlier today, and it put a lot of things into perspective for me when it comes to the Baltimore Ravens. After last night's 33rd loss to the Detroit Lions, it has become evident to a lot of people that this team is not being coached the right way, and there are certain things that are allowed to happen that we are seeing bleed over into games. Just the undisciplined nature of what the Ravens players are doing. Now, I understand that the coaches don't get on the field, they don't miss tackles, they don't fumble, they don't throw interceptions. But the one thing that they are supposed to do is have teams fully prepared as to what they are going into when they play games from week to week. And what I am seeing is a team that is being coached or allowing their players to be on some bull. This is not the Baltimore Ravens team that we expected coming into the season. This is not the Baltimore Ravens team that we expected to see, period. This franchise has been known for defense and toughness. Even the years when this defense wasn't as great as some of the others, they had tough teams. This team is as soft as a strawberry shortcake ice cream sitting out in the sun. We have no real leaders in this locker room and the coaching staff. When your head man lacks accountability for the wrongs and the ills that he brings to this team, it's a problem. When you bring friends and family into the fold and you continuously let them do this dog shit, you are the one that is culpable and neglectful for letting this team be where it is. And I truly do understand that the Ravens are only 1-2. They were 1-2 last season and we went on a run. But this is a trend. A team this talented should not have to start the season with question marks. A team this talented should not be looking like we're one of the worst teams in the NFL. With the collection of stars that we have on this team, we shouldn't be looking around for answers as to why has this happened. And I need you to sit back and think about this for a second. They scored 111 points in 3 games, yet and still we are 1-2. And it's not the fact that we lost to the Detroit Lions because they are a really good team. It's how we lost. We got pushed around. We got out-coached. The in-game adjustments for the Detroit Lions were immaculate. Some things that we need to learn. But yet and still, we continue to make excuses. We continue to sit back and ride for a head coach that has done absolutely nothing since the Super Bowl run of 2012. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't like Mike Tomlin anymore. They're tired of his nonsense. But think about this. We have the same number of playoff wins, but Mike Tomlin has more playoff appearances, but he doesn't, and he has not had a Lamar Jackson, a Derrick Henry, a Roquan Smith, a Kyle Hamilton. He's not had any of these players, but yet and still has had similar and to some extent more success than the Ravens have. He's done more with less, but yet and still we give John Harbaugh a pass on all of these things because he won a Super Bowl in 2012. And for me, it's not the losses. Any given Sunday, any team can lose. And it's how we lose the same exact way all of the time, being underprepared, getting smacked in the mouth and not knowing what to do next. So when it comes to the 2025 iteration of the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to break down into 3 phases why this team is failing and why all the hope that I had before the beginning of the season is now starting to wane. It's starting to dissipate and I'm starting to believe less and less. Do I think that we're going to make the playoffs? I do. But do I think that we're the championship level team that I once thought that we were, where all offseason I was proclaiming that the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl? I am less likely now to believe that. From what I've seen through the first 3 weeks, and yes, things can change, things can get better, but not with this coaching staff, not with this general manager. So I'm going to break down into 3 different reasons, 3 different phases why we may be in trouble this season. And for those of you who are going to say it's one game, no, this is not one game that I'm speaking about. It's a collection of games. It's a collection of seasons where we've seen the same thing over and over. And the first thing that I'm going to pinpoint is it's going to be Zachary Orr. Our second-year defensive coordinator. We gave him grace the first season. It was his first time being a coordinator of any kind, which to me is kind of stupid because you're in a Super Bowl window. You have all the pieces in place, and you're giving a guy a chance to kind of come in and maybe do something. We don't know. So we saw it last season. He was not ready for prime time. And we thought this year, all right, a little bit of experience. He's going to come back. He's going to do things a little bit better. But through the first 3 weeks of the season, we've seen that he has regressed. He has actually been a lot worse than he was last season. And last night's game was a microcosm of it. A lot of people are going to say we were missing Kyle Van Noy. We were missing Nnamdi Madubuike. And yes, those things do matter. But let me ask you guys a question. Was Kyle Van Noy there in week 1? Was Nnamdi there in week 1? They were, and we gave up 250 something yards passing in the fourth quarter alone. So don't tell me that those two guys being here last night was going to make a difference in this game, because it was not. Kyle Van Noy has looked terrible and slow this season. Nnamdi was in the game last week against Cleveland. Didn't look too well. In the Buffalo and Cleveland game, there were 90 plus attempted passes, and the Ravens got 3 sacks. Unacceptable. And a lot of it has to do with scheme. Some of it has to do with the players. But more importantly, it's the defensive coordinator. It's Zach Orr. And last night showed me he does not know what he's doing. He's in over his head. The first 2 weeks, I'm like, we'll see. That fourth quarter in Buffalo kind of gave me a glimpse into what I was going to be seeing for the rest of the season. But last night showed me everything I needed to see. The Baltimore Ravens have 5 first-round corners in this secondary, but we want to play zone. We don't line anybody straight up and have man on man. We don't allow Nate Wiggins to follow around the best wide receiver just to see what happens. It couldn't be any worse than what's going on right now. And Zach Orr, for last night, for whatever reason, decided he was going to run these same exact plays. No in-game adjustments. The Lions made adjustments. That's why we saw the Ravens offense start to struggle. Us, we kept doing the same thing. And you could just look at the game and watch the coverages and see this ain't gonna work. Mike Green, we're trying to ingratiate a rookie into the NFL, get him used to certain things, get him experience. You're dropping him into coverage. What? I don't know how you thought that that was going to be successful, but it was not. This defense last night got no pressure on the quarterback, 0 sacks, which snaps a 57-game streak where the Ravens had at least 1 sack in a game. 57 straight games. Now that's all done. You can blame the players and say we don't have that dude up front, but some defensive coordinators scheme. They scheme things for the lack of players that they do not have. Zach Orr does not do that. He gets stuck, he gets fixated on one defense, and that's what he's running. He doesn't adjust to anything, and that is my issue with him. We are going to see these same type teams in the playoffs. If you can't adjust now, what makes me believe you're going to be able to do it later on? Because I don't believe you can do it. Through 3 games, you have the 32nd overall total defense in the league, giving up 415 yards per game. You have the 31st scoring defense in the league, giving up 32 points per game. And you can bring Kyle Van Noy back. You can bring Nnamdi Madubuike back. You can insert Jair Alexander back into the starting lineup. How much is that going to change? What are they going to give up now? 405 yards and 31 points? Because the defensive coordinator does not put his players in a position to succeed. He is in over his head. And I think that we all knew this when they brought in Dean Pease and Chuck Pagano. If you're doing your job successfully, I don't have to bring in 2 former defensive coordinators, 1 a former head coach, to help you run this defense. But apparently, this is what the Ravens do. They bring in guys to help guys that aren't doing their job and continue to let them fail miserably. So then this brings me to my second issue. The second problem with the team is John Harbaugh. For years, you've heard me say Jonathan Harbaugh is a problem for this team. And he is, because I've seen a repeated pattern of things going on. I've seen a repeated pattern of a guy who is smug and secure in his job, feeling like I'm going to do things my way. I'm not going to make any changes. And it is what it is. You brought in Zach Orr. Cool. Now, when you've seen that this experiment has failed, it's time to move on. We don't have time to play around and let him learn on the job. If you have to bring in help for him, you have to move on. And you as the head coach fail repeatedly to have guys prepared for games. You are the one who allows a defensive coordinator whose players missed 20 tackles, which isn't on the coach, but they allowed 4 rushing touchdowns for the first time in history at home in 30 years as a franchise. And you sat back and let this man continue to do the same thing over and over again. Never do I see you step in and assert your authority and say, hey, look, guy, this ain't working. We've got to change some things. We've got to make some adjustments. We were out-coached by Dan Campbell, and this is an issue that we see a lot of times in the playoffs. John Harbaugh has never out-coached anybody in the playoffs. He's always been out-coached. He's overmatched. And yes, he won a Super Bowl in 2012. We are in 2025, still talking about the same issues that has plagued us over the last 13 years. We don't get up for games. John Harbaugh looks lost on the sideline when somebody punches us in the mouth. And the Ravens have lost their toughness. The Ravens have lost their ability to play like a Raven because we're trying to get guys that fit the mold of what John Harbaugh thinks is best for this team. And if they don't do what he says, if they don't acquiesce to his demands, they get in his doghouse, and we leave talented players sitting on the bench because John Harbaugh's mad at him. John Harbaugh throws a tantrum, and now you can't play. It's my ball. I'm taking it and going home. We've seen this in the past with Steve Saunders, Greg Roman, Dean Pease. We've watched guys stay with this franchise too long because of loyalty. Not about winning, because of loyalty. You feel like that's your friend, you should keep them around, even though they were a detriment to this team. Zach Orr is a detriment to this team. The Ravens defense last night gave up drives of 67, 98, 60, and 96 yards. We were bullied. We were embarrassed. We were smacked around. And I thought that was supposed to be the identity of the Baltimore Ravens. And it's not, because it is a reflection of its head coach. What is this team's identity? Our identity is a team of chokers. We are known as a team that cannot play for a full 4 quarters. We used to be the Baltimore Bullies. Now we seem to be the Baltimore Babies, because we've been babied by a head coach that is either coaching it or allowing it to happen. Dan Campbell, you can see the respect of his players. You can see how excited and enthused his players are for playing for him. You can see how they want to go that extra mile. You can see how he takes chances, while our conservative head coach just sits back and says, you know what? Whatever happens, happens, because of the press conference, I'm going to tell you that this is how the game of football goes. You win some and you lose some. Our beloved Super Bowl winning head coach does not demand the respect of his players that other head coaches do. His words are tired, his culture critiqued, and his mannerisms are downright offending. And people are tired of it. Even the most diehard John Harbaugh backers are starting to see the things that I've seen for the last 13 years. So you can say fire John Harbaugh, you can say keep John Harbaugh, it doesn't matter. As long as we are replicating what we're seeing and getting from our head man, we're not going to win a Super Bowl. And the last point that has me rethinking everything that's going on with the Ravens and possibly winning a Super Bowl, and once again, it's not about one game. It's about just seeing over and over the things that have gone wrong with this team. And the third thing is Eric Decosta. I tried before the season to give you the benefit of the doubt. I tried to sit back like everybody else and say, all right, he's constructed a good roster, which he has. He's constructed a good roster. It's not a great roster. It's not a dominating roster. My problem with Eric Decosta is you prioritize the wrong things. And when I've said it in the past, I've been attacked. I've been told you don't know ball and all this other dumb shit. But I need y'all to think about some things. Middle linebackers, inside linebackers don't affect football as much as you think. Safeties don't affect football as much as you think. And even your general manager said, yes, you have to be strong in the trenches to win in today's NFL. But guess what? He ignored the trenches on both sides. And now we're seeing the fruits of his non-labors. He said you need to be strong on both sides, but yet and still, we run out this offensive line that got Lamar Jackson sacked 7 times. Now, some of those sacks were on Lamar, but overall, think about this, because a lot of people are saying Lamar shoulda, but are skirting over the fact of what really happened. Lamar was pressured 30 times last night, and you're like, damn, it's a lot of pressures. But I need you to think about this. He only dropped back 38 times. So 8 times total, there was no pressure. But you want to blame Lamar for being sacked, right? This offensive line is atrocious. Voorhees is lost. Faalele is just bad. And Eric Decosta knew this years ago when he said next year my line is going to be okay. They're going to be pretty good. So you were wishing on a star and hoping things would get better. Before the draft, you said this defensive line is a little thin. It could use some work, but yet again, you did nothing. You want to prioritize from safeties in instead of inside out. It's not how you win. You yourself said how you should build a football team, but you're so enamored with you getting defensive backs that it's crazy. You drafted another safety in the first round, which was supposed to come in and do miraculous things, has done nothing. He whiffed on that David Montgomery 72-yard run, and we got bullied. We're getting zero pressure on the quarterbacks. We have no sacks the last game. We have no guy who can win one-on-ones or is that dog on defense. You neglected both lines, and now it's showing. And now we're sitting here wondering, oh, why can't we get any push on the offensive line? Why can't we get any pressure from the defensive line? Yes, Madubuike is out, but I thought it was, oh, Eric Decosta has built so much depth for this team. I thought it was all about the depth that Decosta had built and everybody was giving him kudos for. Now, when a player goes down and that depth isn't there, now we're looking around saying, well, we were missing this guy. How do you expect us to do this? You can't praise him for one thing, and then when it doesn't work out, make excuses for him on the other hand. This is the front office that decided to experiment with certain things. Has Odafe Owe turned into a nice player? Yes, he has, but he was an experiment. The year that we drafted him, we traded away our best offensive lineman and brought in a project defensive end / rusher. And ever since then, this line has gone downhill. We've gotten defensive player after defensive player after defensive player, yet and still we don't have a guy that can go out there and win a one-on-one and get a sack. We have a defensive coordinator that couldn't scheme up pressure to save his life.
We got a bleeder!
And this is all a culmination from the front office and the head coach, because the front office brings in the players, sometimes to the detriment to appease the head coach. The head coach decides who plays, even if they're good or not. And unfortunately, our head coach hires friends to be coordinators. Todd Monken, I didn't want to go in on you, but you are a little suspect yourself. Your play calling in certain situations, questionable, especially when the Ravens get down. When we get down in games, Todd Monken decides, I want to just chuck it and go for everything. He's not helping his offensive line out with his play calls as well, but the offense is balling. It is the decision makers, the defensive play callers, and some of the players that are going to hold this Ravens team back from reaching that ultimate goal. Lamar Jackson is fed up, and I'm fed up with some of the fans who were talking about last night with Derrick Henry fumble. Well, Lamar Jackson took too many sacks, but they failed to mention this defense. They failed to mention who comprised this defense. They failed to mention who coaches this defense. They failed to mention who brought in the guy to coach the defense. It is always on Lamar Jackson when this team fails. So why not give him the protection that he needs? So when we do lose games, you can say, well, Lamar did this. He's got the protection. He's got the weapons. He just didn't perform. You're not going to do that. Everybody did everything. Even on the Baltimore Ravens website, there was one guy and they were asking what went wrong in the game or whatever happened. And this guy spoke about Lamar Jackson and then said, oh yeah, the defense was missing Kyle Van Noy and Madubuike, making excuses for this defense, putting this on Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Yes, Derrick Henry fumbled. He did. But he didn't give up 38 points. He didn't let a team go on 2 90-plus yard drives and bleed the clock. And the last thing I think for me that an experienced head coach would do is watch other experienced head coaches who are successful. Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, with the first-year offensive coordinator, ran the ball early. And I'm like, what are they doing? They're not having success running the ball until they did. They stuck with it and ran the hell out of the ball. The Baltimore Ravens, for the first time in the Lamar Jackson era, have went 2 games and not rushed for 100 yards. The Detroit Lions stuck with their formula until it worked. Us, we throw shit to the wall and hope that it sticks. It shows the incompetence of not being prepared for these games. The Lions were prepared for this game. They knew their game plan. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew how they wanted to inflict pain on the Baltimore Ravens, and they did exactly that. And we stood there and we just took it. We took all of it. There was nothing that we could do to stop them from running the ball. With all of these first rounders, with all of these Pro Bowlers and all pros, we did nothing. I think Roquan Smith used up all his juju last week and had nothing left for this team. Trenton Simpson, 0 snaps. All of this stuff that we keep allocating to this defense, and they seem to get worse and worse every year with more talent. Explain that to me. How do you bring in more talent consistently but seem to get worse as a team? And it is only 3 weeks in, but it's a bad look 3 weeks. And it has to do with what the general manager is prioritizing and bringing onto this team. It's what the head coach is deciding to do with these players. And it is who he brings in to coach these players. And it's not working for us. And I'm sorry about this rant, but this is pure hell for me. To watch a team with this much talent go to waste. To watch Lamar Jackson, the last 7+ years, have his talent wasted by a guy who can't get out of his own way. So hopefully, with the next 14 games coming up, the Ravens can figure something out and we can get it together. Yeah, we started 1-2 last season, but it was a little bit different. This year, we're starting off in a gauntlet. We're 1-2. Next week, we have to go up against the Kansas City Chiefs, a place where we're 0-3 at, a place where we've never won. We're 1-6 versus Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. We have a problem beating them, and they have problems presented for us. We have problems with strong defensive fronts. We've seen this, and now we're bringing in Chris Jones and George Karlaftis. What you think we're going to do with them? Then we got the Houston Texans, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. Then we got the Rams, Jared Verse. Like, we have guys over the next 3 weeks that can wreck this offensive line. So to say, oh, don't worry about 1-2, we don't know where this 1-2 is going to take us. Just because it took us somewhere last year doesn't mean we're going in that same direction this year. And it's just concerning with everything that we have. Voted the best team, the best defense, the best roster, got the best quarterback, one of the best running backs in the league. And yet and still we have to keep making excuses as to why we are underperforming. So you tell me, where does it start? Where do we lie this blame of why the Ravens just can't get out of their own way? While we continue to choke away games, even though we are clearly better than a lot of these teams. Why are we constantly outclassed in coaching by lesser coaches who have lesser experience? Y'all tell me. And when you figure it out, hit me up in the comments and just let me know. And once again, I do apologize for this rant. I'm just very frustrated today. And as you can see, if you stick this long through the video, it's no edits. I'm not editing it. I'm just going and saying what I feel, because I don't even feel like editing that crap that I saw on the field last night. So if you like what you're saying, make sure to hit like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys, and see you guys next time. I'm out.